All right, so we're going to talk about a little topic called quadratic form. And this happens occasionally when you're solving an equation and you look at it and you realize it's not a quadratic equation, because remember, quadratic equations are parabolas, degree 2. This one is a 4th degree equation, but it does have what we call quadratic form. And to see that, it's helpful to make a substitution. So I'm going to make a substitution, then we'll go back and look at why we did this. I'm going to let u equal x squared. If u equals x squared, that means u squared would be x squared squared, which is x to the 4th. So then I can go back to this equation and I can write this equation in terms of u. X to the 4th is u squared. So this is u squared plus 3, x squared was my u, minus 40 equals 0, which that is a quadratic equation. And how do we usually try to solve those? We try to factor. So this factors into two numbers that multiply to negative 40 and add to positive 3. That's going to be plus 8 minus 5. By the zero product property, either u plus 8 equals 0 or u minus 5 equals 0. So that means u is either equal to negative 8 or u is equal to positive 5. Now we've solved it for u, but our original problem was in terms of x. So after we get it solved for u, we should replace back what did u equal? U equaled x squared. So I have either x squared equals negative 8 or x squared equals 5. This, of course, has no solution. You can't square a number and get a negative answer. So this one's no solution. But if x squared equals 5, that means there's two solutions here. X equals plus or minus the square root of 5. Okay. So how do we spot quadratic form? So let's go back and look at this. We know a quadratic equation always happens when you have u squared plus 3u. And just to emphasize that, that's to the first power minus 40. So what is the similarity here is that just like 2 is double this power, 4 is double that power. If this power is twice the middle term's power, then it has quadratic form. Okay, and then the next thing is, what did we let u equal? Well, you want to let u equal this power right here, because that's going to be u squared. Let's see a couple more examples of this. So I have x to the 6th plus 5x cubed minus 24 equals 0. I notice that the 6 is twice this power. So I know it has quadratic form. I'm going to let u equal x to the 3rd. And then u squared would be x to the 3rd squared, which is x to the 6th. So in terms of u's, this equation is now u squared plus 5u minus 24 equals 0. Factor it. So two numbers that multiply to negative 24 add to 5. I'm going to have, well, it's u plus 8 times u minus 3 this time. So I'm going to get u equals negative 8 or u equals 3. Plug back in. So this tells me x cubed equals negative 8 or x cubed equals 3. And just remember that you can't take the previous problem. We had x squared equals negative 8, and that had no solution. But you can cube a number and get negative 8. That, in other words, you can take the cube root of both sides, and you can take the cube root of negative 8, which is negative 2. And then if you have x cubed equals 3, my one and only solution would be take the cube root of both sides is the cube root of 3. Remember, when you solve an equation by taking a cube root or a fifth root, an odd root, you don't need to do plus or minus. There's only one number cubed that would give me negative 8. That's negative 2. It's not going to work for positive 2, right? So it's not plus or minus the cube root. It's just the cube root. Okay, and then I got one more example here. This would be a good time, if you think you've got it, to pause the video and practice this one on your own. Okay, assuming you've done that, I notice that 4/3 is twice 2/3, so I'm going to let u equal x to the 2/3. And that's because u squared would be that squared would give me x to the 4/3. So this is u squared minus 5u plus 4. Factors into u minus 1 times u minus 4. So I get either u equals 1 or u equals 4, which really means x to the 2/3 equals 1 or x to the 2/3 equals 4. How do I solve? This is maybe a review here. How do I get rid of something to the 2/3? Remember, I just want to have x, not x to, in other words, x to the first is what I want, right? So how could I get that? If I raise both sides to the reciprocal of 2/3, which is 3/2. Because you multiply those exponents, that just gives you x to the first, or just x, which is what we're looking for. Now, 1 to any power is 1, so 1 to the 3/2 is 1. That's my first answer. But for the second one, if I do the same thing, we have to remember that, so this is going to give me x to the first. A number to a fractional exponent, 4 to the 3/2 means I want to take the square root of 4 and cube my answer. The bottom number tells me the root. This tells me to cube my answer. Square root of 4 is 2. 2 cubed is 8. So these would be my two solutions. All right, so hopefully you now understand what quadratic form is and how to look for it and how to solve it.